Okay. David, let's start. Before I talk about Hibs,
Yeah.
you've mentioned in the last few days about Livingston becoming a feeder club. You would absolutely look at that and explore that possibility. Are you making moves? Is that something that you're making moves
It's
on?
something that's kind of had a lot of interest, but a lot of time wasters in football. It's something that we've actively looked at. John Ward keeps me up to date with most things in terms of off the field stuff, and there's been active meetings over the years, but I find that when you look at the Brighton model, let's say with Royal Union and Brighton, you look at that, I'm thinking for the English Premier League they've got to be branching out and looking at other clubs in other leagues, not just the English Premier League, but I think that's now the business model of successful football clubs. I think that's an avenue they're going to go down. I think they used to do it years ago with Sir Alex with Man United. Did you know, have the boys going over Holland? It was a Dutch, but I can't remember what club it was, but you used to have that feeder. It's a little bit different now, but I do think in terms of recruitment, the recruitment's becoming strategically one of the most important tools for your performance on the park, and I think that business model of having 2 or 3 clubs within the one stable, Man City, very, very similar. So, and there's other clubs, don't get me wrong, that have been very successful doing that.
Are you putting out that call because it becomes more and more difficult as a manager to punch above your weight?
I'll put out any calls. No, but I've had a wee bit of interest, to be honest. John's always kept me in the loop with that, and it's not so much somebody coming in and saying we're going to buy the club and take over the club. The club's in good stewardship with John and Robert. It's about more people coming in with a partnership proposal. Maybe you look at Scotland, just thinking a wee bit outside the box, but it's fairly simplistic in my view. It's difficult for players to get work permits to go down and play in England, but if you could get a work permit for a player to come in and play in Scotland, he plays European football, he automatically qualifies for a work permit in England. So there is that model there, whereas you look at the top clubs in England are all recruiting the top talent in the world, but below that, maybe Championship up to mid-level Premier League clubs, it must become really, really difficult to get foreign players into your club that are going to have an impact on the field. So you need to look at different ways in being able to get boys in playing UK football.
Tell me about 2 things here personally and from a club perspective. Managers over the last year have had 7 games. They've been sacked after 19 games. They've been sacked after 22 games. How difficult is it now for young managers coming in, any manager surviving when the clubs seem to be looking for quick fix more and more?
I think when you look at the success, if you look at success historically, going right back to as far as I can remember in football, with Sir Alex first going into Man United, more recently Arteta, I think is it Graham Potter's come out and mentioned Arteta, he's mentioned various managers, and I think where you get a lot of your success in football is through continuity. I do understand it's very, very difficult because fans are wanting quick fixes on the park, boards are wanting quick fixes on the park. Financially, football's very, very volatile, especially at our level. But I do think it's going to be an industry that's going to need looked at sooner or later. I'm a little bit biased in that respect, that maybe bringing in a window for managers. Like I think when you've got board of directors of football making football decisions and bringing managers in, and then 3 months later managers are getting sacked. I don't, in any walk of life, surely, in any walk of life that's not correct. There's got to be a wee bit of continuity at a club. There's got to be a wee bit of everybody pushing in the one direction. So I think it becomes, I do understand it also from the financial impact, but how can a manager do his job properly when you've maybe got a dressing room saying, oh, in 6 weeks time he'll not be in a job anyway? So how can you do your job properly?
Is it time for maybe chairmen, owners, chief executives to take a wee step back and think about that, especially in our industry here, which is, precarious. It's a 12-team league. 6 of them are usually fighting off relegation.
Probably 80, Peter. It's not until match day 33 that when the split actually happens, you take a deep breath, or you go, right, we need to go again, we're in a relegation battle. So there's probably a little bit more than that, 8-9 clubs every year that are fighting to stay out the bottom 6. That then makes it really difficult as a manager to bring young players through academies and give them game time, because it's so limited, every point's so precious. and where you finish in the league so precarious, so it's really difficult at that point. It probably is a model. I'm very fortunate that John and Roberts allowed me free rein in the footballing department, so if we don't get it right, it's only David Martindale who's to blame, and I'd be the first to hold my hands up and walk out the football club. I'm going to say I'd be speaking to Robert and John and saying I think it's time I left the club. They've backed me for day one, but I've been allowed to make those decisions on the part myself, which it must be difficult going to other clubs when you've got sporting directors bringing managers in. I'm only surmising, Peter, because I don't know how it works at other clubs, and every club will be different. That's not to say a director of football at this club's making all the decisions, a director of football at this club's allowing managers to get the final say. So every model's different. I can only comment on my own model, but I'm glad that my future, a lot of my future, or the progression of my career is in my hands, so to speak, to a certain degree.
Well, with that in mind then, from a personal point of view, I'm listening and reading your quotes from the last few days as well as over the course of this season. You've got players that maybe you've got an option on, that you might want to keep them. You know there's 4 or 5 players that you're just not going to be able to keep them. Some of them are going to walk out that door. Yeah. How difficult is it for you to be aware of your personal stock for your own ambition, which you must have, and then look at a club that you have to almost regenerate season by season?
I've done it. That's now coming into the fifth season in the Premier League, and it's a continued process. Only season we really had any sort of continuity was coming from League One to the Championship, and then the Championship to the Premier League, because we managed to retain our better players that year because of the progression 2 years on the bounce. This season we had a wee bit more continuity in the building. Next year, again, it's going to be a wee bit more volatile in terms of the players that I'm going to lose from the football club. But my stock, how I've run the club and how I intend to keep running the club until the day I'm not at the club, is what's best for Livingston Football Club. I make decisions based on what's best for Livingston, or what's best for David Martindale. It's got us to where we are just now. So from a personal stock point of view, I genuinely and honestly, I don't really, that doesn't come into the mix. The Livingston Football Club comes before David Martindale.
And with David Martindale, eventually, do you look at guys like Jim Goodwin, who's out of one job, goes into another job? You know, Aberdeen are looking for a manager, all these type of things. You must have ambition in the back of your mind, or do you just put it on the back burner?
Again, I'll go back to it. Like, I've got ambition. I want to do well financially. I want to challenge myself in other leagues. I want to challenge myself. But do you know what? I'm happy at Livingston Football Club. Do I have any aspirations to not be at Livingston? Of course I do, but short term, mid term, John and Robert will decide my future, no David Martindale. John and Robert get a phone call and it's right for everybody, I'll speak to them. But I've not any aspirations not to be at Livingston. I'm contradicting myself there. Short term aspirations, I'd come in every day to do the job to the best of my ability. I don't put David Martindale first, I put Livingston Football Club. And I think the day that I start putting David Martindale first in terms of the football, and when I'm an employee at Livingston, I'll start making bad business decisions. And I'll never ever do that. I will always put Livingston Football Club before David Martindale.
Okay, as a manager now, you've got, I think, 6 or 7 teams around you, or maybe 1 or 2 above you. This is a group of games coming up, starting with Hibs, that could define the way your season goes before that split. And they're all winnable. Is that acceptable? Yeah, I think we've now played, if you look at it, Aberdeen away is a difficult fixture, nothing in the game, but we lose the game. We were Rangers at home, difficult. Celtic away, extremely difficult. Hearts at home, we managed to get a point. So the way the league, I break it down into the 3 thirds basically, 11, 11, 11, then we deal with the split, when we deal with the split. We're into that batch, and the start of the first batch of 11 fixtures was difficult. The start of the third batch of fixtures is difficult. We're now coming into where the chance of success in games, and every manager that I'm going to be coming up against will be saying the same things to his players, because there's all much of a muchness between us all. So we're coming into games where the chance of success is a lot higher, the probabilities of picking up points are a lot better than, let's say, Hearts, Aberdeen away, Celtic, Rangers. So there's an opportunity coming up over the next 4 or 5 weeks where we've got a chance to pick as many points up as we can, and that'll define our season at that point. So you're right in that assumption, the next batch of games, but it'll not be just David Martindale sitting saying this to his players. It'll be Callum Davis and Derek McInnes,
Jim Goodwin, everybody, Malky Mackay will all be saying the same message to their players.
Tell me about Hibs and what you know about them and how you can get 3 points from them.
I think we're at home and we're capable of taking points off anyone at home. Hibs at Easter Road's a different football team to Hibs at Livingston, and that's just, we're probably a little bit stronger. I think Lee's done a good job, and he's on a trajectory where he's in a good run of form. So tough at the start, but he seems to have turned that around a wee bit. There's a lot of players now came into the club in January that I think's bedded in fairly well. He's brought summer recruitments in that probably didn't hit the ground running initially, that needed to hit the ground running initially. They've now had that bedding in period in Scottish football, and with Lee Sale coming into Scottish football. And I think you can see with that little bit of continuity, and there's been an adaptation period, I think Hibs are in a much better place.
Are you confident you can get top 6?
Yeah, confident we can get top 6. I think still fighting relegation at this point. Really, I am in my head. I'm still talking about relegation, but on one hand, if we win the game in hand, we've got over some clubs, not every club. We'd be sitting 4th in the Premier League. So, on one hand, you're looking at what's below you, and on the other hand, you're looking at what's above you. So, there's no reason why we can't get top 6. At this stage of the season, if you'd offered me this points total on the amount of games we played at the start of the season, I'd have probably taken it.
And just one little footnote, I know the likes of Nicky Devlin and them are out of contract. Are those players that you will wait as late as you possibly can to then say, here's an offer, would you consider it? What do you do? How do you balance it and still get the best out of players?
It's difficult. Nicky wouldn't be in the building if he wasn't the right character. Now, whether Nicky's in contract, out of contract, Jack Fitzwater in contract, out of contract, or coming out of contract, I've got no hesitation in picking these players because they're in the building for the right reasons. They came here to be part of what we're trying to build at Livingston. Every interview, every time I speak to a player or speak to an agent, it's come to Livingston, do well and move yourself on. You're not coming to Livingston for the financial implications that Livingston can give. It's not for the financial package available. So the unique selling point is, I'm happy for you to come and use me as a stepping stone. It's obvious. When they're ready to take that next step, it's very, very difficult in my part, but I've got to revert back to that initial conversation and understand why boys came to this club. So they've got ambitions of their own. Their financial package you can get elsewhere is a lot more than what they can get at Livingston. Hopefully we'll play a little part in their development, their progression as athletes and human beings. So my job becomes a lot more difficult at that point, but I've got to remember why they came to Livingston Football Club in the first place, and the USP to them from me was come to Livingston and then use us as a stepping stone. So when that time comes, I've got to take it on the chin and let them go. And
just finally on that point then, you've always said if you can get extra fans in, that gives you extra money. Would you be tempted, or would you be forced into a situation where even the guys that are in contract, you might want to punt one of them to help your budget?
I think, again, agents text me all the time, phone me all the time, emails, who's available? Everybody's available at Livingston. We're a selling club. Our business model is we need to try and generate as much revenue as possible. One of the best ways of doing that is performance on the park through player sales, league position, cup runs, and maybe European football. Really, that's the only variables that are going to change the short-term to mid-term projections in terms of financial income coming into Livingston Football Club's on-field performance. That then leads to league placing, player sales, and potentially European football.
You've got to show racism the red card badge.
Yeah.
It usually hits a 2-week campaign, which is quite forceful and gets everybody to lift a card. What do you think there's a responsibility for managers, players, clubs out with the 2 weeks here, and how do you think it is at the moment in Scotland?
I think I used to speak to Marv about this all the time. I think Scottish culture as a whole, we're getting better, we're educated a lot more, and I think it's just about sending that education out to everyone. As a club, we're Marvin Bartley was my assistant manager, he's my captain. The colour of somebody's skin has got it doesn't come into my thought process whatsoever. I'm just looking for good people, and that's all we're doing. But I think show racism, the red cards, actually helping educate people that need that education.